always chase the sun around and it's winter. It is winter in New Zealand and we are appreciating our winter season. And with celebrating winter, we chase the sun around. Who loves seasons? Evoke. Who loves seasons most? Evoke. Who loves seasons the most? Evoke. Why? Because seasons awakens us. Every season, and every season is that every opportunity of choice that we get. And that's where we are at today with Rabia Elise, with your Mona Lisa, you. Amazingly, we have allowed ourselves to learn to listen to ourselves. With the Vogue business, we affirm on that is, how do you represent you as a person? Representing you is that does not negotiate the you in your season, right? That does not negotiate the requirement to be current in your season. The you that does not negotiate your yeses and your no's concerning your season. The you that doesn't negotiate where you find yourself at in your season, and the you that approves your seasons. What Vogue, we are in that we are awakened with what we say about ourselves. And when our listeners listens into Vogue business, and when our listeners listens into what Rabia Elise says concerning her business and concerning herself in a business season, right? It is that we have educated on when the process becomes personal. When your business sometimes deprives you of being in your business, right? It is that legislatively people are required to do certain things according to certain processes. And when it comes to that is owning your business and owning your seat in your season, then you allow yourself to listen to how do you find the you within that you manage concerning yourself, right? And when we educate on management and we educate on how do you represent yourself in a professional way, and when you listen to having your eyes set on your every season, your choice in your every season, then you listen to you that explains where you find yourself and how you prosper in your season. It is that legislatively we require so much answer from someone else, right? Employment has educated us to require so much of someone else that has to approve where you find yourself at, and that social media has educated us to question ourselves somewhat in our lives and in our daily choices. And a Vogue business is all about having to listen to self, is to not give self up to be questioned by self, right? It is when you don't challenge yourself to that you sometimes are mentally ill about how you feel about yourself, about how your season is and how you represent yourself in your season. It is that you find that your wellness is the you that voices for you, and that's what we affirm about Vogue. And that's what we affirm about when we voice in our seasons, whether it is on our business page, whether it is on our fashion motivation, and how we educate and how we represent ourselves. It is that we are not negotiating the listening to self in what self says about you that now represents in your photo, that now represents with what you are saying on social media, that now represents with your every reaction about you. Why? Because social media challenges humanity a lot, right? Social media challenges that we say about ourselves. Social media challenges how we represent ourselves. Social media challenges us in that we are sometimes having to transform into someone else's requirement of us to be accepted in a season. We sometimes are so easily transformed into what Vogue says, that attitude of character, right? It is one thing for Rabia Elise to love her makeup and to love her long nails, but it's another thing to be transformed into another character, that when Rabia Elise listens to herself, then she is actually sometimes questioning herself in a season. It is that you appreciate your long nail season as well as you appreciate your hair weave, right? You appreciate that people say that they want a natural hair weave and someone else says, no, any hair weave looks fine on me. It is that when you listen to the education in season, it is not sometimes that people are not agreeing with themselves, but it is sometimes that you can get in question with self when it is that you have to transform into that someone else wants to have you be. It is that education is our every reaction, and therefore when we go on our social pages, when we are representing in our communities, when we find ourselves in our everyday offices, businesses, we are in that we are constantly educating and being educated, right? And when we are being educated, we have to remind ourselves of the school education that has that were approved by someone, right? But within that, you had to learn to approve the you in the classroom, right? Why? Because some people in the classroom were more privileged than the other, and so we were educated to sometimes be in question with ourselves and with our circumstances. And when life educated us to be in question with our circumstances, we were required to have that answers for you in your season. And that's where our generation is currently at. Our generation is currently at that Rabia Elise says that you own the you in your season, right? Our generation is currently at that Rabia Elise says that you educate for you in your season, that you do not deprive the you in your season, that you do not question the you that is required to voice for you in your season, and that you own those merits that so many people sometimes give up on, and they say that, you know what, this star to me means an object that I maybe have bought at Kmart. It's maybe a Christmas amazing star, but you know what, Christmas season in my situation and in my life is every season, right? Every opportunity that I give myself to represent the me in my season, to not have someone else owning the me in my season, to not have someone else challenge me in my season, because remember, when you are being questioned, then you are being challenged as a person. And that is where we want to discuss today, and that we so often are challenged with, but that we so often are required to represent with saying that even though my season might seem challenging, even though someone else might differ with what I voice for in my season, even though someone else might differ with what my business represents and what I represent with voicing for my business, it is that you will remind yourself that in your awoken season, you remind yourself to approve you and to appear and to represent you, that present that is in the Christmas season, that representation that is part of our every season. It is not that we are in contrast to someone else's opinion about us. No, it is that you are listening to you in your season. And therefore, we want to focus on how do you listen to the you in your season. Listening, we have learned, requires having to find that we can hear when we listen. And when we hear, when you listen, then you get a reaction within listening. So listening takes you into that creates a character, that creates a situation, an environment, and that creates an object, right? And when we listen to ourselves, we are sometimes so much in that is the listening, that we don't realize the character that are created while we listen. Listening to us then in our Mona Lisa season becomes that forms an object, right? That forms this that someone else might find priceless, and someone else might appreciate in the completeness of how they have listened to themselves when they listen to someone else. Let me say that again. Listening, when you create something, is that when you find that has been created, you find exactly that is how you have listened to that is the you that have spoken concerning you from someone else's opinion about you. It is that you do not agree with people's opinions. It is that you listen from self in order to listen to what are being created when someone else gives an opinion about you. And therefore, it is easy for us to go on everyone's amazing social experiences, right? And to listen into everyone's amazing social discussions. But when we listen to someone else's discussion and into someone else's opinion and into the room, then we question sometimes where we are at in our seasons. How many have done that to themselves, right? How many could sense within yourself that your every eye set on you is the choice of listening? The choice that you made to press play on someone else's video, and someone else's video created something about your season. Someone else's video might have deprived you in your season, right? Someone else's video might have created something that you have not been introduced to about yourself in your season. And therefore, when we educate on listening in your season, we educate exactly from that is that open-mindedness of how you listen to someone else that has an opinion that creates an environment within your own self, right? Within where you find yourself in your season and within yourself where you are listening from. It is that we sometimes move into people's spaces when we are tuned into them, right? We sometimes move into the environment, and we sometimes become part of the everyday life choices, right? And they sometimes choose to educate us. But when people educate us, how do you listen? Who do you listen to? And how do you deprive you from where you are listening at, right? It is that we all represent from somewhere. And I always educate in my business, and I say that where we educate from is where you find yourself at in the atmosphere, is walking, your walk, your talk, your attitude, right? That creates the you in your season that someone else I introduced to. And when you find yourself walking in your season, and you're required to listen to someone else's season. My sister Antoinette educated us so well on this on Instagram, right? Antoinette Mali, yes, my sister, my only sister. Yeah, I have 4 brothers. Yes, we were 7 children, but we're gonna talk about that on Monday. Such woman of color, right? And I want to say that she really advised us and to really advocate for that. That is that acceptance of our every representation of where we find ourselves at in our seasons, right? No matter if your seasons are different, that you affirm and appearing in your season. And therefore, your walk, your talk, your attitude in that is that every representation that when Antoinette has a hair weave on, and when Antoinette has her makeup on, then you can still find the Antoinette in that. I can still listen to what my sister is educating me, even though I might sometimes have to say that my opinion is sometimes this in my season. But when I listen to that, that is your every sister, right? And as women, we are sisters today, but we are educated of sisterhoods in our own families, right? Being born from the womb of your mama, being the woman in the house, right? You are educated of that is sisters in the universe, right? That is, how do we not aggress ourselves the one with the other? That is that our opinions might differ, that our seasons of opinion might differ, that our voice might be different in season. But every education that becomes when women learns that they are sisters in listening to what do you say about you, and how do you not disregard someone else's opinion, but not deprive you from where you are at in your season. And Antoinette educates us that when she has a different hair weaves on, then you can see that it doesn't train a keratin person. Then you can see that every representation is the sister transmit that I know as a person, right? And that is that person that you would sometimes learn to say that, you know what, this here we can create so much characters, but the representation, the person walking, the walk, the talk, the attitude is that reaction that might not aggress me, and therefore I find myself walking in that I can listen and I can find prosperity in my sister's opinion concerning herself, that I might find myself in a season that are similar to that. And therefore, when we voice in our seasons, and when we listen to one another, it is the object that are being created, right? Some people say that, but yeah, we are not statues. But at the end of the day, when you are not in that, that you are fine with where you are at in your season, and when you question your season, then the you in your season becomes exactly like a statue, right? Like an object, right? Like that people want to say that they want to validate it as precious. They want to give it that accreditation, and they want to tell Rabia that is now the object where Rabia finds herself at. And when Rabia tells herself that she's an object in the season, then she sits on a business seat and she's waiting on opportunities, and someone else says, but Rabia Elise is not that for us. And when you find yourself challenged because someone else says that you are not that in your season, and Rabia Elise now goes off her social pages and she now ends a business and she now is not on social media anymore, then Rabia Elise has exactly become an object to someone else's opinion about Rabia Elise. Then that journey that Rabia Elise is on, that is now a Vogue business, that is now a process for someone else, but the personal Rabia Elise within the process then are being formed into that becomes an object that someone else wants to add accreditation to. And when Rabia Elise's opinion is that, then someone else says, but the photo did not look right, we wanted the photo perfect, and we wanted the fashion voice to be in our season. And then Rabia Elise says that I do not know that when Mama Universe educates humanity, that the vastness of this amazing colors within humanity and within the amazing universe is that some countries find themselves in circumstances that they do not know how to get out of, and some parliamentary leaders have got an opinion of keeping them exactly there, and someone else find themselves coloring another season. And then such is a generation that has to learn that it is where we find ourselves at in our every season that we voice for, and not that someone else wants to create concerning and about you. It is that opinion that her choices, her every approval of herself in a season. And when someone else approves you based on that you have created on your Vogue business, and they have not listened to your opinion, and they have not implemented your instruction, and they have disregarded you being in the room of social media, then it is not the you that should question you, then it is them that should look upon humanity and find where and why the challenges of humanity are such painful, when there's people that motivate, that are on social media, that the videos can be listened to, that countries can be educated in a way that it is the color that Mama Universe is, the sun shines here today, and someone else, there's somewhere else there's winter, and someone else might find themselves in a challenging circumstance, but the education is the universe, and the sky is open, and we represent exactly that. I don't know how many of y'all have viewed in on my photos. I've questioned someone else's photos a lot, right? Malvina's photos, because it questioned my business a lot, and it really put my business into that is out there like an object, right? And I remember in 2021, I was at Auckland Beach, Mission Bay, and I had a light blue pants on, and I had a light blue shirt on, right? A light pink shirt on. And I was also at a year-end function with the light blue pants, and I'm still going to do the light blue pants, right? Sky blue, that the sky is open. And I was walking on Auckland Beach that Sunday with that light blue sky open pants, with that shirt on, of that every representation that is me. And I remember how people came to try to silence my business on social media based on someone else that came years after that. And then they were actually exactly educating what Rabia has educated 3 years ago, right? It is that when I find myself in a season, I have decided to not be transformed into being the object, but to be the every representation where voices from in a season. And therefore we do not go and silence one another out when we are in business and when we are educating, right? Because we come from families that are educated, right? Families that has really been representing in our community in South Africa. And we therefore do not question one another in our seasons, and we therefore do not deprive the one the other from where we are required to be at. And it's somewhat challenging because we have been educated when we are young to be jealous. Yes, we wear our yellow today, right? To be jealous, right? And we have been educated that you get a pair of Nike shoes, you get a Adidas sweater, you get a bomber jacket. And Rabia Elise and Brother Anton was the babies those here, right? And what does the baby say when we go outside and when we notice someone else is wearing a bomber jacket and they're wearing a pair of Nike shoes and they're wearing everything? Then Rabia and Anton says to Mama Anna, we were now the baby, he's the baby brother and I'm the baby daughter, right? He's born just a year and a half before me. And then me and Brother Anton is, Mama Anna, I now also want the bomber jacket because the children are also wearing bomber jackets. And Mama Anna was very firm with us on that education, that y'all are now not going to get bomber jackets, Ruby and Anton. Y'all are going to wait until Mama Anna has finances, and then I'm not going to even buy y'all a bomber jacket. I'm going to buy y'all what I buy for y'all. And Mama Anna has really educated us that we are not going to compare ourselves with what someone else has, right? We are not going to be in competition, in questioning ourselves in where we find ourselves at in our seasons and a family, right? And where our family finds ourselves at. And we are also not going to put merits on our family and on our households to say that we are now the family that was now deprived because Mama Anna didn't have money for a bomber jacket, or Mama Anna didn't have money for the night shoes, or Mama Anna, because sometimes when Mama Anna had money, she would buy for Anton exactly that, right? But she would not have us that we transform into that is now going to be the object, that is now going to be someone else silencing Rabia Elise with the Vogue business, and Rabia Elise with the Vogue business now goes to sit like a statue, and she now finds herself in that season of having to look for herself. And then Rabia Elise learns exactly that your eyes set on you is where you find yourself at in your every season. It is so that when my sister Antoinette traveled to South Africa in 2014, right? Antoinette came to visit South Africa 2013, 2014, and she had a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses, right? And Ray-Ban sunglasses Rabia Elise could not even afford during those years. And then Antoinette came into the room, and then Antoinette has a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses because she always buys herself. She works very hard for money, right? She works very earnestly, and she's been now almost 20 years working, right, in England. And Antoinette came with the Ray-Ban sunglasses. And Antoinette really was very, she probably bought it for herself before she flew to South Africa. And she came with this pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses into our house. And my husband Dorian and me, he first saw the Ray-Ban sunglasses and he got excited because we are now honestly not going to buy for us things that are now going to be 4,000 South African rand, right? Because that's what Ray-Ban sunglasses cost, 1,000 rand, 3,000 rand. And then Antoinette came in, and the first thing Dorian saw was the Ray-Ban sunglasses. And Dorian's first mindset was like, this is original Ray-Bans. Normally, me and Rabia wouldn't buy original. We would just buy what we can and what we want to buy in our seasons. And then Dorian grabbed the pair of glasses, and me and Dorian is in argument because I immediately realized that pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses really now is costing something. And I looked at the glasses, and something reminded me that I might saw someone with the Ray-Ban sunglasses before, and they might have paid a good amount of money for it. And I do not normally buy original things, but maybe that would be a good original, and because it is original, right? And then Dorian grabbed the glasses, and then we were in argument in the room, because then I said, no, let me have the Ray-Ban sunglasses, because honestly, I would now really be that person that now have something original, even though I was employed those years, but it was honestly so funny. And that pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses meant so much to own that, right? It means so much, and humanity is educated constantly on fashion, right? On fashion that is not cheap, right? And that does not come cheap. Why? Because nothing in this universe comes cheap. And sometimes it's being explained to us in the most simplest ways. And Antoinette explained to me that sometimes in life she buys a pair of Dolce & Gabbanas, she buys a pair of Louis Vuitton, or I can't even say the word. And then I realize that sometimes she educates me that it's fine to buy for you something that is original, right? Because we are original. We do not come cheap. Yes, Antoinette educates us. And we can sometimes make time to really spend money on something that is really for you, when you really have worked for it and you really find yourself in that you want to appreciate that object, then you exactly do that, right? And then when we find ourselves not questioning our circumstances, not questioning our finances, not questioning where we find ourselves at, not questioning how we allow ourselves to be educated by self in your season, then you learn to not question someone else so much. Then you learn to not be in agreement with someone else so much. Then you learn to not be in disagreement with someone else so much, right? Then you learn to not be in disagreement with someone else's opinion about you so much. And then you learn to not be in contrast with where you find yourself at in your season. Because every time that you are in disagreement is every time that you are in contrast with something, right? Is every time that the seasons are not intertwined, and that humanity now are in seasons where the one country is coloring amazingly and the next country is in pain and poverty. Humanity is now so much in questioning that the one country says, but we earnestly work, and someone else is managing the businesses, and someone else deprives Rabia from earning an income, and Rabia is therefore not able to go and educate in Africa to say that, you know what, this is how we can train one another, and this is how we can educate one another out of circumstances that is poverty, and that is sometimes depriving the one the other, right? It is that we are one house, and that our choices is that creates an environment. But when we create an environment, we don't create ourselves to become objects, right? We don't create ourselves to become statues. We don't create ourselves to deprive ourselves of where we are required to be at. But we exactly do that. That is approving the you in your every season. And therefore, being fine with voicing for you in your season is voicing for what you say about you, right? Voicing for how you represent the you in your season. Voicing for that is now having your attention drawn to where you find yourself at in your season. Voicing for that when you sense that the environment are different, you know that the difference in the environment requires the you to be awakened with where you find yourself at in your season. The requirement to approve self with the differences in environment, right? That awaken us in attitude, that awaken us in reaction, and that awaken us in that becomes the character you, that becomes the representative you, that becomes the you that approves you, that becomes the you that does not deprive you of where you are required to be at in your season. And saying that approving self is that we own. We own that you remind yourself to approve yourself. You own that you remind yourself that you own the merits about yourself, right? And that you do not negotiate where you find yourself at in your season, right? You do not negotiate you do not differentiate between, you do not look to find difference between you and someone else, but you look to find acceptance with when you are educated between those differences. Then you don't go and you don't go and agree, or you don't go and disagree because someone else might be different than you in your season, right? It is the you approving your every season that is the awaken to you within yourself. That requirement, I want to focus on this a lot. The requirement to be the awakened you within yourself. It is that approval. It is that does not negotiate. It is that does not deprive yourself of where you are required to be. It is that is not in contrast to yourself. It is that is going to be non-depressing and non-humiliative to self. But it is that is when a vogue says the awoken to you, the awaken you within your every reaction, the awoken to you within your yesterdays, that is how you find yourself fine in your todays, right? The currentness of season. And that is what we just want to discuss. with the requirement to be awakened, to be the awakened you within your season. Requirement to be a requirement is a request, right? A request is requiring an answer. The answer is the you that wakes up the next day and the day after that. So therefore the requirement is that creates your environment within your season. Let me say that the requirement, the you that creates the environment within your season. You have a requirement requires the answer about you. You wake up with that have you be fine the next day and in your current day, and you allow yourself to answer that about yourself, right? The you that sometimes has questioned you because of the amazingness of the universe. Yes, the universe challenges us a lot, but when challenged, we answer that does not question ourselves, but that finds ourselves awakened in our currentness, that has awoken in our yesterdays, that has ourselves to be fine in our todays, in our tomorrows. The prosperous you, the blossoming you, the yellow season within a winter season, right? The sun that comes forth, right? The preparation for winter season, right? That bird seasons within our very veins, right? The atmosphere, the nature itself, that is our every education, our every reaction about where we find ourselves at. And that is you approving self with that requirement to awaken yourself within yourself. You approving you with that requirement to awaken yourself within yourself. You awaken the every reaction of you, your walk, your talk, your attitude, and it is that creates that environment that does not negotiate where you find yourself at in your season. And therefore, when you listen to the you in your season, you listen to the you that only have access to you. Someone else comes and they come and question where you find yourself at in your season, and then you remind yourself of the you that are the only person that has access to your season. And because you are the only person that has access to your season, you do not question yourself, even though some people might question you, but you approve your every season with you approving you in your every season. That is our Mona Lisa us, the awakened us, the us that approves us, and the us that appreciates where we find ourselves at in our seasons. And that is where we are at with voicing for ourselves and with voicing for Vogue, and with being a motivation with where we are at, and with not questioning so much the one with the other, but also not being transformed so much that you go and sit in a situation that is sometimes depriving you of where Mama Universe has required you to be at. I always say everyone on earth is meant to be on earth. Everyone who was born was meant to be born. What does Mama Universe say to humanity? That I have birthed them, why are they not fine? We look upon one another, we have our eyes sometimes so much set on ourselves that we sometimes don't listen to someone else's opinion about our circumstances also, and we sometimes don't listen to ourselves in our seasons. It is that when we look at the circumstances in different countries today, we learn to not be too focused only on our what we want in our season, right? I've been without finances for how many months, and it's been fine because the Vogue business has been out in the atmosphere. We did our corners, we did everything that we can, and that Mama Universe allowed us to do, right? And it is exactly that we educate ourselves, that we're not depriving ourselves of being where we are required to be at in our seasons, of owning your business, owning your seed, owning you, and representing exactly that, your walk, your talk, your attitude, that is the every you in your season. That is it with Vogue Business today, and with our Mona Lisa as representation, and with the us that can appreciate and accept the completeness of where we find ourselves at. That is it. Have an amazing, an amazing, an amazing awoken Saturday.